So we are going to be doing a spoiler review for Deadpool and Wolverine. If you have not seen the movie yet, highly recommend checking out. Again, yeah, got the nice popcorn bucket there,
There you go.
uh, fleshlight there, sex doll Wolverine popcorn bucket.
Yeah. It says can also be used for popcorn on the bottom there.
Very nice there. Yeah, so if you haven't seen it, but everybody's pretty much seen this movie by now. I think they say it's planning on crossing a billion after this weekend. It is going to hit $1 billion mark. It
Wow.
just passed Passion of the Christ as being the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. So
It's
it
funny because
also,
they made a joke about that in this. I think it was in the second movie where they he looks at the camera and goes like, "We passed Passion of the Christ internationally, where there's no such thing as religion."
yes, they did make a joke about that. Somebody pointed that out. And here's the joke right here. Somebody had it there on Twitter. Let me pull it up right here. But yeah, very funny joke right here. Oh, let me up.
No one talked about in the same sentence as Jesus. Passion of the Christ, then me. At least domestically. We beat them overseas, but there's no such thing as religion.
Yeah. Very.
Funny
uh,
considering all the Marvel Jesus jokes in the third one.
yeah. So, gonna talk about Marvel Jesus himself in this third film here, Deadpool and Wolverine. Like I said, huge success, huge hit. I guess a lot of people could have predicted that. Being what this movie is, the fact that of hey, going to see it maybe for the cameos, going to see it for Hugh Jackman back again as Wolverine. Um, you
Finally
know,
in the costume this time.
finally in the costume this time. Even though I thought the brown one looked better. I thought they showed the clip of the brown one. I thought that one looked a little bit better. It was funny when Deadpool said he looked like a LA Ram. That was from the LA Ram trailers. I thought that was kind of funny there. But yeah, you saw the movie. How many times did you see? Did you see it once?
Just the once.
Okay, I saw it twice. I saw it twice there just to check it out. Second time, and I like it. Maybe about the same, a little bit less. Seeing it the second time, I thought it was all right. Some people really enjoy this movie. Really love this a lot. Think it's a return for the MCU. I know people go back and forth. The MCU's back. The MCU's dead. There's that meme of back and forth there of how many people say the MCU's back. The MCU's dead. But yeah, a lot of people thought this was a great return to form there. They let Deadpool, be his kind of R-rated self there. So kind of felt like, yeah, it was, yeah, like Deadpool from the Fox movies coming over and doing his thing there. Yeah, real quick, what did you think about Deadpool and Wolverine there?
I did really enjoy this. I'd give it I'd say a strong tune in as far as the rating scale here goes. I have criticisms of it too. Don't get me wrong. There's some things in there that I think there's a little bit of clunky exposition at times. I think some of that is a little, you know, eh, very like MacGuffin, kind of like, hey, this will kind of we just gotta have an excuse for some of this plot to happen. Um, which I'm sure you'll probably bring up the same thing I'm hinting at there. But overall, overall, this really did work for me for the most part. Um, just I think part of it's the nature of Deadpool as a character. I expect it to be a pure comedy, and to not really take the story all that seriously in within a Deadpool property. I'm kind of expecting and maybe even looking for something that's a little sillier that doesn't necessarily like I guess I just wouldn't hold it to quite the same standard of like having like emotional payoffs or drama to get invested in as I would a lot of other characters. Just compare like as far as multiverse stuff like Spider-Man or Doctor Strange, I expect a little bit more seriousness out of those. And so some of the cameo stuff here, um, so to me it worked better here just by the nature of Deadpool as a character being this very loose meta comedy character versus something where I'm like, all right, like in a dramatic movie, I'm like these cameos are maybe distracting from trying to get invested in a story. Whereas I just want Deadpool to make me laugh really, and maybe I'm giving that character a pass in that way, or maybe it's a bias that I just like the character, but I don't know. It's just a different set of expectations that I go in with for me.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I give it a tune in for there, which on our scale, if you had to do out of 5 stars, it'd be about 3 out of 5 stars there if you had to go on that scale. I think it's a solid movie. As I said there, I think it's got a lot of good jokes in it that really work. I think the whole kind of premise of it, how it's kind of set up. There's some stuff that some bumps along the way. I don't think a lot of stuff is kind of fleshed out. We're going to be getting into that in the discussion here about spoilers. Um, I don't think it's such a relying on cameos, there as much as, like, some other stuff. I think that's more the icing as opposed to the main, meal there. Like, you see something like The Flash, it's like they just dumped a bunch of cameos. It's like, "Well, hey, this is what you're here for." There's, like, a box of toys, and you just dump it on the ground, in the middle.
And they were dead, half of them too.
Dead half of them. You had, poor Christopher Reeves that they dragged up his, AI corpse there and had him on there.
I felt the worst about George Reeves because it's not like a completely confirmed element, but there's rumors out there for a long time that playing Superman for George Reeves got him typecast, which was had played a role in his depression and possibly his suicide. So digging up his grave and putting him in that movie and putting him in the Flash like that is, I mean, that I mean, I can't lie. That has got to be like my least favorite movie of all time.
and they even did a movie about that. Ben Affleck played him. He
Yeah.
was Hollywoodland, I think was the movie called. I think.
Yeah. Hollywoodland.
Yeah. So yeah. So I think they utilized the cameras pretty well there. If people don't know, again, it's out there pretty much. I think for now, if you haven't seen the movie, but you had Wesley Snipes who returned as Blade there. I think in my audience, that got the biggest pop. What about for you?
Oh yeah, same. People were very excited to see Wesley Snipes. I
Yeah.
mean, it's funny. He took the record from Hugh Jackman for being like the longest actor to play a character for the most amount of time. Just
Yeah.
because, I mean, as much as there was a gap between Blade Trinity, and this, it is the longest interval of time one actor's been attached to a character like that.
Yeah, I was wondering because I think wasn't I having the conversation with you about how that works? Because I was like Michael Keaton was in Batman Returns, but then he showed up again in the Flash. So it's like, does that
Mm.
count as like playing the character from
Um,
that? Like, does that count?
so I would say, I mean, is there? It's an appearance. I mean, I think it counts at least on a basic level. But I'd also say, and then this would also be a thing that I liked about some of the cameos here in Deadpool versus say Doctor Strange or versus the Flash. But the same argument could be made about Michael Keaton as well. But I do think that like how far does it how much screen time do they have to have before they're not really a cameo and they're more of just a supporting character in the story? Because like Michael Keaton's Batman, I mean, once he does show up in that movie, he's there for like the whole rest of it, pretty much.
Yeah,
So he's like a supporting role, right? Not so much a cameo. Whereas say like I think in like Doctor Strange, those really just feel like cameos to me because they
yeah,
walk on, they're there for what, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, they're gone. And I felt like in Deadpool and Wolverine, and maybe it was just a time perception thing that I'm misinterpreting, but I felt like they were there more. I felt like they had like once they showed up and then they were there for you know kind of a whole act of the movie rather than just kind of walking on and then walking off right away. So I felt like they were there a bit more. So I don't know. Would are they just cameos or were they supporting roles?
yeah. I would say they would be more camp because they show up in a specific section of the movie, and then they kinda I mean, they don't really come except one of Daphne Keane, she comes back at the last, like, dinner scene, but she
Right.
doesn't really have any dialogue or anything like that, but they're mostly just, like I think that's just cameos. Like you said, Batman, Michael Keaton, The Flash, that's a supporting role. I mean,
Yeah.
they damn near marketed the whole movie just with, "Hey, Michael Keaton's back as Batman." I mean, it really said,
Right.
"Fuck The
That's true.
Flash." It's Michael Keaton back as Batman, let's focus on that instead of,
They had him
Ezra
doing all the press tours too.
yeah, they had him out there, doing it, so, you had that, and then in something like you mentioned Doctor Strange, I mean, that's just yeah, that was just kinda because 'cause they're in a more Pacific just a section of the movie there, as opposed to that. Now in No Way Home, that's actually that's a little bit more of a supporting because they show up and they are there till the third act, and then they do their thing. I think they feel more like characters there, which a lot of this movie's being compared to No Way Home and then other multiverse type stuff there that they've done in the MCU. Which overall, they even make a joke about that they said the multiverse had this saga has just not been good. And then for someone like you who's been pretty critical of this recent phase after Endgame, the phases after Endgame there of Marvel, and for you to enjoy it, I think that's what a lot of people are feeling like. Is that kind of the case there? Like you, I mean, it's been pretty much a desert there, and you finally find some water there, pretty much.
I mean, I would say that I think it's gone back and forth. There's been stuff that I've enjoyed. I thought that Loki, in particular, was also one of their strongest things that they've done. I thought both seasons were really good. I liked WandaVision at the beginning of the phase. I thought Black Panther 2 and Guardians 3 were both really, really solid, really good movies. So it's, it hasn't been like completely empty. I think there has been good stuff that's come out. I just think I think for the phases, the 1 through 3, the Infinity Saga, everything leading up to Infinity War and Endgame, I think that the worst movies in those movies were just mediocre. I don't know if I'd say any of them were truly terrible movies. I think they were just kind of middling. Stuff like Thor 2, where like is again, I don't think it's good, but I think it's just kind of unmemorable. But I don't think it's like a horrible film. Um, and I think that's the difference where, for me, the MCU up through Endgame, there were some weaker entries, but I think they still worked for the greater whole. And then going into this phase 4 or 5, I think that there's been a lot more stuff where I would say like, okay, that was actually just that was kind of bad. Like Black Widow, I thought that was just actually like a bad movie.
Mm,
Eternals, I thought was kind of just actually a bad movie. So there isn't that like kind of layer of like, let's at least catch ourselves at the middle, even if we can't put out something great. Um, and so the bar, like the lowest that the MCU went to me has gotten a lot lower. And I think it's been a lot less consistent in general. Like it's been like there's been a handful of things I've liked, and then it's been a lot of stuff that I thought was either weak or genuinely just genuinely kind of bad. Um, so like I'm not necessarily expecting this to be a huge turning point for the whole franchise. I look at it like I looked at, you know, Loki or Guardians 3 or Black Panther 2. And I don't know, I wouldn't say it's as good as any of those. I think those are all better overall, deeper stories. But again, I will say there's an element of just what Deadpool's like as a character and what I'm expecting from him specifically. And I am just expecting it to be a comedy that's funny, not necessarily for it to be this like you know this I don't need Deadpool to be the most sensical narrative in the world. I think I can give it some slack with some of that stuff as long as it is entertaining and it is humorous. And so to me this did achieve that, but I don't think it's a sign of hey the next movie's going to be good because this one turns things around, you know.
yeah. And we talked about this before with the MCU and, the direction of it. And like you said, I mean, it's kind of been the consistency just hasn't been there as much as it probably was in the previous time. And like you said, I mean, I just judge it on a case by case basis. The project, like you said, you mentioned Guardians 3, I thought was very good. And I like Guardians 3. Then you had something like The Marvels, which I thought wasn't really all that strong. And then you had Loki season 2, which I thought was way better than season 1. I actually really think Loki season 2 is very strong. But then you had stuff like Secret Invasion, and then that was really terrible. So
I'll never get the image of Samuel L. Jackson making out with a green alien out of my mind. That is traumatized into my brain forever.
so I mean, so the consistency just hasn't been there with it. And just said you got to start, I guess, rebuilding that trust again there with the fans and kind of having that level of consistency again. You talked about it, I think, and when we had discussed about it, that yeah, this is the only Marvel movie coming out this year. So that has that, you kind of it's like, all right, so it's not an overabundance of these things, like 3, 4 of them coming out, but next year we're gonna have 4 of them coming out next year, and then plus the DC
I'm
movies.
worried about that.
Yeah, and then plus the DC
DC's
movie.
sticking to just one.
Okay, they're just
Just
doing
one.
doing okay. So a
Just one.
5 total of all superhero movies there that we're gonna
Yeah.
maybe have next year there. So you have that kind of going for it. And you also have going for it that the fact that it is R-rated. You do have Hugh Jackman returning, like who knows maybe when he's gonna come back again. And what I like about this movie is like some MCU projects is so preoccupied with the building up the next project. It's like we got to toss this
Yeah.
character in here because we got to set up their Disney Plus show. Like that was Black Panther 2. It's like we got to
Yeah,
throw in
and I liked that movie a lot, but it did have that problem.
yeah, Riri Williams. We got to toss her in here for her Ironheart show, and then in Doctor Strange 2, we got to toss in America Chavez because she's going to be a young Avenger and all that stuff. So it's all
Right.
these characters that get tossed in there because we got to build up the next thing. This one felt like it's just mainly about the adventure of Deadpool and Wolverine and their kind of story
Yeah.
there. And so go back to the cameos that we were talking a little bit about. So biggest pop, like you said, probably Wesley Snipes, Blade when he showed up. I thought that was the biggest one there. Um, that was the only one I was pretty much surprised by was him. Channing
Especially
Tatum,
because him and Ryan Reynolds did not like each other for at
yes,
least a long time.
they worked together on Trinity together. They did a long time ago there, and yeah, they had a lot of beef on set. And you can go and Patton Oswalt, he talked about it in an interview of like, people trash that movie, but he says like the ability to get that movie made makes it one of the greatest movies ever. Because Wesley Snipes just like he was hanging out in his trailer smoking weed all day, and he wouldn't even talk to anybody, and he would only be addressed as Blade. Like he would just go around like nobody would have to call him Wesley. They only Blade there. So yeah, there was a lot
No
of
Wesley, only Blade.
yeah. So there was a lot of trouble with that on set, and then yeah, him and Ryan Reynolds kind of got into it there. So that was pretty much the only one I was pretty much surprised by. Channing Tatum Gambit. That was a rumor. I'd heard that he was gonna be in
Okay,
it. I'd heard because the people were tossing like every name was getting tossed out. Like this person gonna be in. This person gonna be in it.
sure.
So I had heard he was kind of gonna be in it. Jennifer Garner, when she showed up, I was surprised at first, but then I remembered because I think Jennifer Garner did an interview where she was like, I think she just broke down and just admitted she was going to be in it. I think because so
I
many
think
people,
so. Yeah.
yeah, I think she was like, yes, fine, fuck it, I'm gonna be in Deadpool and Wolverine. Like she just kind of just admitted to it there. And she comes back as Elektra there, her character. And I actually saw that movie for the first time this past weekend. I was like bored. I was like, let me pop in Elektra. It's on Disney Plus. That movie was in '05, I think that movie came out, I think.
Yeah, 05.
And I've seen worse comic book movies. I've seen worse.
I
It's not
haven't seen it probably since 05, so that's when I'd have to refresh my memory on.
yeah, it's not good, but I've seen worse there. And then you also had this one they put out in the trailer, which I thought was kind of a mistake. I don't know why they did that, but they had Daphne
I
Keene.
actually read why. It's because she couldn't go to the red carpet premiere of the movie unless they announced her being in the film first. For some reason, that's the excuse at least that they put out there, that they
Yeah, I,
wanted her to be able to go to the premiere. But I don't feel I feel like she could have been there because hey, I was in one of these movies at one point and I'm supporting my former co-star. You could have made something up. I don't know.
yeah, that seems like I don't understand because there's plenty of people who go to these things who have a connection to them, and then they're not in the movie. I mean, Mark
Yeah.
Ruffalo could have showed up, and it doesn't mean Hulk is going to be in the movie. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. It's just like hey, he just shows up because maybe he's contracted to be there. Because of the business, the brand there. So yeah, um, yeah. So what? So did you? I mean, were you surprised by any of the cameos? Were you pretty much just like, oh yeah,
I was surprised by Blade and Gambit. I hadn't really heard anything about either of those two. Electra, I think I'd seen that interview or heard about that interview, so that one I kind of was anticipating. And then I guess the other big one was Chris Evans as the Human Torch, which I didn't hear anything about, but I had a feeling it seemed like something I would have been surprised if they passed it up. So that one I was kind of anticipating, but not just out of my own prediction.
Yes. Oh, that's another one to mention. And Chris Evans, who returned as not Captain America, who, people probably initially thought when you heard him and Deadpool was like, oh, yeah. And then he says flame on. And so it's calling back to the Fox era when he was Johnny Storm there.
I what I wonder is how many general movie going audience members, like especially maybe younger people, like remember that movie or have seen that Fantastic Four, like people that are fans of the MCU that maybe they didn't watch all the other superhero movies that came out before the MCU. So I wonder if if they were how much that might have been lost on certain people. I mean, same thing with Channing Tatum as Gambit, where like he wasn't even in a movie. he
Yeah.
was a casting for a movie that almost happened and then didn't. That's a
The-
deep cut. Like, I wonder how many people in the theater are like, "Oh yeah, I remember reading casting news and 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and this still resonates with me.
Yeah, maybe that'll be Mahershala Ali. Yeah, he'll be like, "Yeah, I was supposed to be Blade, never happened." Like, it was supposed to make the movie, but just never happened.
I mean,
Um,
Wesley Snipes pretty much looks right at the camera and goes, "Only been one Blade, only ever gonna be one Blade." So
yeah, it was funny because I guess they completely ignored the TV Blade because there was a TV Blade,
there was that
Sticky
TV
Finger,
Blade.
Sticky Fingers, which was on Spike TV. Did you ever see that Blade?
I did watch some of it when it was first on. Yeah, I remember going to my cousin's house, and I didn't have cable, but I remember going over there and watching a little bit of it. I could not tell you anything about it. I don't remember it very well, but I know I watched it.
Yeah, I think this only lasted like a couple of seasons. I think.
Ooh, that is some rough looking CG. Ooh, over on the table there. Wow. Oof.
Yeah, and this was on Spike TV. I think I remember it being
That's
on.
why the CGI looks like that.
Yeah, I don't think Spike TV is that's not even a thing anymore. I don't think Spike TV is even a thing.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't think it is.
yeah. So yeah. Oh man, oh
Oh,
Bokeem
is
Woodbine
that?
was in this too. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Pokemon. Oh, okay, okay. Well, I
Evil
like
Dave
him a
Chappelle.
lot.
Yeah. Okay.
He's the Dave Chappelle from the Star Trek Mirror Universe.
Yeah. And I
I
don't
need
really
to go change
remember much of Sticky Fingers' performance as Blade. I don't really remember much of his performance there. If
No,
it was,
I couldn't tell you anything, honestly. I know I watched it, but beyond just having seen it, maybe some little bits of imagery, it's like completely gone from my mind.
and then you also had another cameo in here. You had a voice role come in. Blake Lively was Lady Deadpool there, so she was that. And then Rob Liefeld, I should say, he did create the character Lady Deadpool based on Blake Lively.
Oh
So,
wow, okay.
so the two
There's a little
Deadpools
bit of
married
additional
each other.
color.
Look at that.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
fun points there.
All I know
Uh,
is kids were the baby in the kid pool.
yes, his kids were, yeah, Baby and the Kid, all the different universe pools that came out there. Uh,
Matthew McConaughey was the cowboy, and I think Nathan Fillion was the floating like zombie head with the propeller on it.
Oh, okay, nice. I didn't hear about that one. Nathan Fillion was the one. Okay. And then in the scene when they actually first go to the void, you also have some return of former X-Men villains there returning.
Mhm.
You had the actor who played Sabretooth from the very first X-Men film return. You also had Pyro there, who was we saw in the trailer anyway. He was there.
Yep.
Ray Parker returned as Toad. Uh,
I saw. I didn't recognize him in the movie, but I saw people pointing at that afterwards. Obviously, they did not get Colin Farrell as Bullseye, but they had a guy dressed up like intended to be that Colin Farrell version of the character. He's
oh,
standing in the background. He doesn't have any lines, and it's definitely not actually Colin Farrell. But you can see the bullseye like carved into his head and like the scar tissue, and he's wearing the that very goofy leather trench coat from the Daredevil movie.
yeah. Okay, nice. Okay, I didn't see that one. And then when they go to like Cassandra Nova, her, palace or whatever, her kind of evil kind of kingdom there. And you also see some other X-Men villain mutants. Now, none of these are played by the actors of former. Like you had Lady Deathstrike, who was played by Kelly Hu in X-Men 2, but she didn't reprise her role here.
Right.
You also had
It looks like
Juggernaut,
it's with a oh Juggernaut. Okay.
which was supposed to be Vinny Jones, but Vinny Jones, I think he already came out in an article. Like I was asked to be in it, but I said no because I didn't want to get in the costume again. So
Right.
they had that. Well, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I recognized a few of them. I couldn't tell you the names even of the characters, but several of the like warlock mutants that they have as kind of cannon fodder in X-Men 3, I noticed walking around in the background.
Yeah, they had Callisto was there, who that's not the same actress
Callisto.
who played her in X-Men 3. Yeah, so they had some of the other ones there. They had Azazel. Azazel did return. It was I
Oh,
think there
from
was
First Class.
first
Yeah.
class. They did have him there. Who I think that was the same actor, Azazel there.
I do have to be like a super nerd and comment on Pyro could not manipulate the Human Torch's powers. Just as a I'll be nitpicky there, but like Human Torch's fire powers are like supernova for like the sun level fire. Pyro is not that powerful of a mutant. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna be extra nerdy there for
So
a
if
second. But
Human Torch used all his, he would just like explode Pyro, just like trying to like consume it or control him.
I think so. Yeah, I think that would
Okay,
probably kill him.
okay. I was kind of thinking that. I was like, wow, that's. I mean, I didn't know he could control fire from like that, but I don't know. I don't know if they've ever squared off in the comics before.
I couldn't tell you a specific moment, but I just know that the Human Torch's powers were supposed to be on this like, I mean, it's the cosmic radiation they all get their powers from, but like it is a very high level of like supernova fighter. So, yeah, that's one thing I was like, all right, I can't shut my comic book brain all the way off for that moment.
Yeah, which they do bring up in the Fantastic Four movie. I actually rewatched the movie, the 2 Fantastic Four
Oh
movies,
yeah.
and at the end, he does tell him to go supernova to beat Doctor Doom, yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
So he does tell him to do that there. So yeah, so that was some of the cameos there, had fun, good time with them. Yeah, and,
What do you think of Gambit's Channing Tatum doing the voice, the
the voice
accent?
I see the meme going around there of kinda what he says, like, people jamming all the words together there of kinda what he says, so now he's like a meme now of it. Yeah, and I also like Deadpool's joke about, it was like, who was his, dialogue coach
Who
in
was your
Menu.
dialect coach?
That was, I thought, really good there. But I
It's
know some
funny
people.
because he grew up around like Creole accents, and then he like moved back. I think it's his girlfriend or wife at one point, and then like went back and reacclimated himself around Creole accents like later in life. So it seemed like he was doing it kind of like maybe not good on purpose. Like because I wonder like goofy and playing it up for the sake of it being a comedy. But I wonder if he could do a little bit more of a I'm taking this character completely seriously version of the voice too. I don't know. Be curious to see.
Let's see here.
Jeez. Look at you. You look like the superhero version of Hawkeye.
The name's Remy Labo, du Diable Blanc. But you can call me the Gambit.
It's been a while since I've seen Sling Blade. Hit me again.
They call me the Gambit.
Do they? Are you sure you didn't just really, really want them to, but it never quite worked out?
Would they, we never had a Wolverine up in here. But I can tell you now, it's just a common courtesy to ask before you drink up all of my liquor.
Yeah. So do you like? I mean, do you think it's kind of fine for what it is? Yeah.
I think it's fine for what it is, but I also I don't know. He doesn't sound quite as suave, maybe as I mean. I'm comparing him to like the '90s, '97 cartoon Gambit, which maybe is an impossible standard to live up to. But
So let's get some of this plot here of Deadpool and Wolverine. So the premise is that the anchor being of Deadpool's universe is dying or dead, and then that's causing his universe to die. And then you have Mr. Paradox, who plays by Matthew McFadden, who people might know as who plays Tom in Succession there, who's basically playing Tom in Succession in this. If you ever watched that show, middle management guy trying to achieve higher. So he's like, usually it takes 1,000 years for a universe to die. So I'm just going to kill the universe now. And he plucked Deadpool out of that universe because, he has a grander purpose. Obviously the meta version of that is, hey, we like you, the Deadpool people like you. So we're going to pull you, maybe have you in the future MCU stuff. Maybe we're going to get into that later on of what is the future of the Deadpool character. Maybe.
why is Thor crying?
Yeah. Why is he crying there? So you have that. And then he creates this MacGuffin machine, as they say there, this time ripper that's going to destroy his universe. So he's on a clock there to basically save his universe. And he has
Two
to,
MacGuffins in one, pretty much.
and he's like, well, the anchor being of his universe was Wolverine. And that's kind of one of my questions is that the whole concept of his anchor being, because that wasn't introduced in Loki. And a lot of it is drawing the stuff from Loki because the TVA got introduced in Loki and everything like that. And you brought up a point where we were talking about it. So the anchor being is like, so what happens when a universe is created and thousands of years has existed? Like, is there just no anchor being? And
Millions of years, right?
billion,
Like go by before Wolverine was born initially, right? So like, I mean, was there someone else before that? Like they really do not give you very many details about this concept. It feels it feels pretty thin. It really is just a reason to go get another Wolverine.
yeah, it's just kind of a reason there because I mean the movie opens up like basically poking fun at all the people when they first talked about it. It's like, oh, this is gonna ruin Logan, it's gonna ruin the legacy of Logan, the sanctity of that movie, and it's like, oh, you think we're gonna ruin the memory of that movie? Let's dig up his corpse and actually have it where we actually fight with his skeleton there.
I love that. I thought that was a really great way to do it. And like Elsa, there's no way that you're not going to make people have that question about Logan. And so to lean into that so hard, I think that actually worked really well.
So yeah, I was kind of wondering because in the film Logan, which takes place in 2029, and then it's a future where most mutants are extinct, and that's been about over a decade. Most mutants have been extinct, but this is supposed to be in the same universe as Deadpool. I don't know exactly
Right.
how that works exactly.
No, I don't either. The only thing I remember maybe hearing back when Logan first came out was that it was taking place like because it was 2029, it was taking place like a good chunk of time after the Deadpool movies were taking place, but then obviously then the time between 2 and 3 that they would have had to have happened in between those movies, and yet like Shatterstar, Yukio, Colossus, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, they're all at his birthday.
Yeah,
They're all hanging out. So like, I mean, none of them are dead. None of them seem very dead. So yeah, I don't know. That's a little unclear. I feel like they really said like, all right, this is a comedy. Don't think too hard about it.
yeah. Because I mean, if that's the case, wouldn't there be a Wolverine right now in the like in his time where he's living in right now? Wouldn't there be a Wolverine that he could just go and grab? But he said the Wolverine's already
Yeah,
dead. So
I
does
mean,
the
it would have to be that like Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2 happen, and then Logan would have to happen in between Deadpool 2 and 3.
yeah.
But then again, if Shatterstar, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Colossus, all these other mutants you're seeing in the movie are just completely fine, and
Yeah.
Deadpool's fine in this universe. I don't know. Like Logan really went for like we're going like a good 10, like 11 years into the future here, and everybody's gone. But like, I don't know. Like, is Colossus the only? Was he just not at the mansion that day when Xavier accidentally like whoever he was? Did Colossus just was he going to get groceries or something? Like, how did he get out of that?
Yeah, so I don't know how to yeah, that was kinda confusing to me, why,
I'd
like,
say Deadpool wasn't there to die, right? Because he didn't even get accepted into the X-Men in the first place. So you can reason your way around him being around still, but not those other characters really.
because they are the X-Men, like, they're wearing the X-Men gear and he
Colossus, at least, for sure. I mean, Shatterstar, maybe not. I don't know if Shatterstar, they didn't really, but like, yeah, but Negasonic, Teenage Warhead, Yukio, and Colossus, at least those three, for sure, were
yeah,
their X. So, like, yeah, I don't know how you work your way around that.
yeah, so that was I don't know, at least somebody can answer that question for me in the comments because I was a little kinda confused on that.
It also
Um,
kind of felt like the whole idea of an anchor being just came up because, what in Doctor Strange, they brought up the idea of a Nexus being, didn't they?
yeah, I thought yeah, because I don't know if that's the same quite the same thing. Because I mean, America Chavez was the Nexus being, and then
Well, I think Scarlet Witch was the Nexus being, and then
oh,
America Chavez's thing is that there's no variants of her. She's a unique one of a kind in the multiverse.
oh, okay, so Wanda
But
was
then,
Nexus.
yeah, and it was like, oh, someone who's powerful enough to like tear the dimensions open and walk into the other worlds. Which if then we see like several other ways of that happening. So that rings kind of all out. But I don't know. Anchor being, Nexus being, I could honestly see neither of those terms ever even coming up again.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the future.
So what was the Nexus being? Is this supposed to be somebody who could tear into the universe or travel between universes or something? Or
Yeah, I think that was the idea.
okay, all right. Maybe I got to rewatch Doctor Strange again to get that again.
Maybe it came up in WandaVision. I'm questioning myself now, but I know it was in one of those two.
Yeah, I wish I had watched because with the whole thing with the void, because I think they explained because this goes into my another thing. So the void,
Mhm.
when Deadpool he goes on a whole montage to find the Wolverine to replace the
Mhm.
Wolverine of his universe, and then he ends up finding the worst Wolverine. They say there, and you see like all the comic book, different various famous comic book versions of
Yeah,
Wolverine, Patch, and where he's in his brown costume and he fights Hulk, which I said the brown costume looked really good. I actually thought that looked kind of better.
I did. I did like it a lot.
Where he fights
That's
Hulk,
also the other cameo in the movie too. Was the Henry Cavill Wolverine?
who they've dubbed the Calverine. That's his official,
Yeah,
yeah, thing there. Real quick, what do you think about that?
I mean, I thought it was fun as a joke. I don't know that I want to see that like as like a full blown ongoing character necessarily, but as a gag guy. I mean, to be honest, I actually think like the cameos of like Blade and Elektra and Gambit and all that stuff fun. I actually thought this montage of different Wolverines was better. If we're gonna talk like little appearances and cameos, I thought this was maybe the more entertaining version of the two sections. Um, but again, I mean, I don't know that I want to see it as like an ongoing character that's like got a movie to himself or is like part of the Avengers. Or I mean, I don't know. He maybe shows up in Secret Wars and has like another brief moment. I could see them doing something like that, but I don't know that I necessarily want like Henry Cavill to be the next Wolverine. I mean, personally, I would love for them to, if they ever allow Hugh Jackman to stop. Like they make that joke about Disney forcing him to do it till he's 90 a couple times in the movie. But if they do ever allow him to stop, I really just want Daphne Keane to be Wolverine.
Mm.
X-23 has been Wolverine in the comics. Hugh Jackman has played this character for so long, and we've had so much screen time of this character. Not only is it like I want to see other X-Men get the spotlight when the MCU does do the X-Men all the way, but if you're gonna have a Wolverine, do Daphne King as the legacy version of Wolverine. I
Yeah.
think that'd be way more interesting.
And people are very receptive because they already seen her in Logan. They really loved her in Logan and everything
Yep.
like that. So yeah, he goes on this whole
Built in.
montage there, finding other Wolverines. We see well, not even really comic accurate Wolverine because that dude was like, I mean, Hugh
He's even
Jackman.
shorter than the comics.
I mean, they made him like 4'9" or something like that. I mean, or
Usually
4'5".
Danny DeVito says.
When in the comics, he's supposed to be 5'3", 5'2".
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
they exaggerated how short
yeah.
the comic book version is for the joke. Which I mean I thought it was very funny still, but he's definitely not actually that small.
And so he finally finds a Wolverine that doesn't kill him in the first like 10 seconds of meeting him or, like put his claws through his head or anything like that. And we see, so in this universe, the one that Deadpool grabs the Wolverine for the movie for, and this is kind of the thing is like, the multiverse is like we can get the same character, but it's a different character technically because it's in another universe, but we can have the same actor play them and you can attach the same emotions that you had for that character because it's played by the same actor even though this isn't the same Wolverine we know from all the other X-Men movies, because that one's dead. They're saying that one's staying dead. So he grabs him. Now, the Wolverine in this universe, we learn that all the X-Men are dead in this universe, as they tend to be. A lot of the X-Men die a lot, as they tend to do.
I'm glad we have 97 where we can see not Wolverine X-Men, just do anything.
Yeah.
Not having to be the only surviving character.
So we see that there, and so he grabs them, and so this universe, X-Men is dead there. Supposedly a bunch of humans came, as he says, and killed the X-Men. I don't know how humans would kill the X-Men. Maybe Sentinels. Maybe
I wish they would have just said Sentinels, because then I wouldn't have had any questions. If they literally, and they even during one of the action scenes when they're escaping from Cassandra Nova's hideout, like literally Deadpool and Wolverine like hitch onto a Sentinel leg and like ride the rocket boot up. So it's like they even acknowledged Sentinels in the movie. It seems silly not to have the Sentinels be what did it, because just like a mob of regular people. It's like, not that they couldn't pose a threat to maybe some characters, but in like a large enough group, but like the entire X-Men team together, all home at the same time, couldn't deal with that problem. Like Logan is him not being there would have made the difference. Or I don't know. It definitely seems a little silly.
Yeah, because you got Omega level mutants on the X-Men. You got Storm, you have Jean, you got I mean Professor.
I guess I don't know if Iceman was there, but Iceman's an Omega level mutant.
Iceman, I mean, that seems kind of, I don't know, kind of crazy there. So I wish they would just, like I said Sentinels instead of that. And so that's his trauma in the movie, is that he wasn't there for the X-Men team. There, what do you think about? Do you feel like his story should have been more fleshed out, the Wolverine?
I genuinely think it's funny because a lot of these comic book movies are like 2.5 hours long on average, and you oftentimes, almost always, I'm like, they could have cut like 15-20 minutes out of that. I think they could have added 20 minutes to half an hour here, because this clocks in at like what, an hour and 58 minutes about?
Like 2 hours and 8. Like 2 hours and 8.
Oh, is it 2 hours and 8? Is that counting credits or no? Is that
that's counting credits too, yeah.
Okay. So I think, so not counting credits, it's probably like just about 2 hours. I think they could have added another half hour onto this film. One, show this Wolverine's backstory, like actually show it. Let us get to know this version just a little bit better, because obviously it's allowing you to take how you feel about the other version of the character that died and carry it over to this version, right? It's relying on the audience to already feel some sort of way about Wolverine in general. But I think, yeah, 20, 30 minutes, you could have had his backstory. And then I also think you could have had Gambit, Blade, Elektra, just given them more dialogue, given them a little more to do, um, and made them feel maybe more like fully fleshed out supporting characters rather than just cameos. Um, and that's, I mean, that's a small thing too. I'll just mention. I think having them all roll out in the same scene the way they did, it does take a little bit away from the uniqueness of each of those characters. And again, if they're cameos, that's fine. But between not maybe having as much of Wolverine's backstory and then maybe these other characters maybe not having as much screen time as they could have, I really think that, most of these movies, shaving 20 minutes off of them, I think this needed another 20 minutes just to flesh those couple things out a bit better.
Yeah, and I know Deadpool says that towards the 3rd act, he's like, "Okay, okay, guys, we about to wrap it up. Don't worry." But I'm like, "Well, maybe you could have added some more stuff in it because you said, yeah, I think the Wolverine stuff could have been fleshed out more because it's like, I mean, I don't really have any real attachment to this Wolverine because he's from another universe. This isn't our Wolverine,
Yeah,
And I mentioned before with No Way Home, like that's the same Spider-Man from the movie, so you get why you would
right,
be attached to Tobey Maguire, and that those weren't just Spider-Man just from a whole other universe there, so you get it.
right.
Yeah, so so there's that. So it's like, okay, your X-Men died. I was like, I don't really have much of a other than I'm supposed to because I know of the X-Men from the past movies and
Right.
everything like that.
Because
Um,
you're aware of the other versions of the character.
yeah. And then so he grabs him, and then that's what Mr. Paradox he tells him his whole plan there of like, hey, you grabbed the wrong Wolverine. You can't just replace an anchor being. Can't just take one and put it in another universe there. And he ends up pruning the both of them. They go to the void. And then this is another thing. So, speaking about the cameos that show where we get to see Gambit and Elektra and Blade and Daphne Keene, how do because I think they explained it in Loki. I don't quite remember. I wonder if you do. Why do people go to the void? What's the particular reason?
So the
People,
void is literally the end of time itself. So the TVA, especially in like the first season when it is still very much Kang, right, in control of it, or at least a version of Kang in control of it. He has everything that's deleted from every timeline sent there for two reasons. One, there's supposed to not be any way to get back from it, right? It's supposed to just be like here's a way to permanently get rid of anything that's not supposed to exist. Send it to the end of time. And then the Eliath creature, which was kind of like Kang's pet in a little bit. Like that's where he was all of the TVA's technology, like all of their like the little sticks that they use to prune people, that was like built using energy from Eliath, this like big smoke monster thing. And that's
okay,
supposed to then just like permanently destroy all of the things that get sent to the void. So Cassandra Nova being so powerful that she could kind of fend Goliath off and have like this little small community that existed, that seems like very much not supposed to be something that's possible. It's just a product of her being such a powerful psychic, I think.
okay. Because I was like, I mean, why is Daphne Keene there? Because the lore that she's playing is the lore from Logan. So they already said so. That is
Yeah, that is actually a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but she's from the same universe Deadpool's from, which shouldn't have had anyone pruned from it before, because that was like the first Deadpool was the first time they took someone out of that world, and she was in that world at the end of the Logan. So, yeah, that actually doesn't really make any sense, huh?
yeah. So I don't understand why she's there. And then also you mentioned that point. Yeah, it's like nobody from Deadpool's universe should have been pruned yet. Um,
Huh?
and I guess I mean, wouldn't that make his sacrifice kind of somewhat a little me? Because it's like he sacrificed his life for her and the kids. So it's like,
Right.
why did she get pruned? I was kind of confused on that.
Yeah, that's odd, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a stumper. That doesn't, because either the only way that I could think of to make that make some more sense would be that it's not the same Laura from Logan. It's a different one that's in the void. But then that's less interesting because just yet again, it's that thing where you don't really know that version of her. Then if it's, but then she puts those glasses on,
Yeah.
which we saw her. So it has to be the same version. Yeah, that might be like a legit plot hole, actually.
Yeah.
I think that's an actual plot hole there.
And the whole thing with Wolverine, so he said he went on a killing spree after the X-Men died. Don't know why he isn't in prison. Don't know why he's
That
uh
I feel like I can explain. I feel like you can kind of explain that away because he's gone on killing sprees so many times in the comics and he never ends up in prison. He's too impossible to kill. He's too hard to catch. You know.
yeah, they just said fuck it, just like whatever. It's like John Wick. They're like, you know what, screw it. Yeah, you kill so many people. Yeah.
Right. You go after him. I'm not being added to the pile. All right. That's probably that sort of thing.
And a little bit more of the void. Did you think some every moment with the it was kind of corny with the cameos? Like you mentioned Laura putting on the glasses. I thought that was kind of a little corny there.
Yeah, that was a little corny. I thought so. Yeah. I mean, well, I'll tell you one moment I liked in there was when they're talking about the people that didn't make it, and they're like, the lecture's like, yeah, Daredevil was here, but he died. Or I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah,
That
because
got a good laugh.
because Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck obviously were married, and then Jennifer Garner showed up in Daredevil as Elektra first, and then she had a
Yeah.
spinoff movie there. She did have that there. I don't know. I felt like Wesley Snipes repeating this iconic line.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
He does say that again here in Deadpool Wolverine. I thought that was kind of a little corny there. I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't. There wasn't really much of a reason for it. He just was like, hey, you remember that?
Yeah. How did you like that action scene there where all the
I thought it was okay. Like I think it could have been better. I mean, that's one thing about like you know, just talking to someone earlier today about Sean Levy as a director, and I'm not to say he's a bad director, but I think he's one of those kind of working man directors where he just does so many things. He's easy to work with for big studios because he'll just kind of do what the movie that they want him to do. Looking at some of the action sequences in both of the first two Deadpool movies, I think those have really cool choreography. Like even the second one, as much as I don't love the story in that movie. I
Mhm.
think the action scene choreography is really good and very memorable, and it feels very, I don't know, it's just directed really well. And I feel like the action scenes in Deadpool and Wolverine, like I think there are some fun ones, but I don't think any of them are like, oh, I'm gonna remember that, or oh, that was some really great choreography or camera work, or I don't know. I didn't really feel like there was anything significantly memorable on that front of the movie. I mean, maybe the long shot in the where they're killing all the Deadpools on the bus. I thought that was probably the best one.
Mm.
But for the most part, I thought the action was fine. It was like I'm here for the jokes. The action's okay, I guess. It's serviceable. I don't know. Yeah, but if you go and compare it directly to either of the first two Deadpools, I think the action is the weakest in this third one.
Yeah. Yeah, because they show up, they're like, okay, their plan is they're gonna take on Cassandra Nova and then get the helmet from Juggernaut and then put it on her and then find a way to get out of there. And they show up just like guns blazing, like they through a rocket
Yeah,
launcher and they shoot it in there. Why didn't she? I mean, she could just kill him instantly. I don't know why she just didn't do that because she's that
with
powerful.
how powerful they talk her up to be, right? Yes.
I mean, we saw her. She already ripped the skin off of Chris Evans' Human Torch there instantly.
Right. I mean, that set up a display of what she was capable of, and I feel like it set up the threat pretty well, and then it's never really followed through on.
Yeah. I get that. I mean, you want to see these characters have their big action moment. I get that. I
Right.
get you want to see Elektra be cool and Blade be cool. So I'll forgive that because he's like, I get it. You want to see them have their big thing. And seeing Gambit do his thing where it was R-rated, where he threw the cards and people exploded. That was cool. Okay, so I'll give it that. So I'll let what I get. You want to have their big action thing there.
The choreography had been a little more unique or interesting.
Yeah, it could have been a little bit tighter. Could have been a little bit tighter, a little bit more focused there. But some of the stuff was good. Seeing Blade take on Azazel was cool.
That was cool. Yeah, that was cool.
because I guess he's the closest vampire-looking guy they got there, so, of course, Blade is gonna take him on.
Right.
Um, so they end up getting the helmet from Juggernaut, which in a cool way, I mean, she cut, like, his Achilles, Juggernaut's there, she cut both of his Achilles, that was actually a cool
Yeah,
moment.
that's cool.
I wish we saw
Oh,
the
I almost forgot the Russian from the Punisher. That's another one
Oh,
of the
he was in
villains
there
thrown
still?
around there. Yeah, yeah. I don't think it was the same actor from the Thomas Jane movie, but that was definitely who
Oh,
that
he was
that
the one with the
character with the
striped
striped
shirt?
red.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay. Alright. So yeah, oh, okay, that's a nice little thing. So yeah, she ends up doing that to Juggernaut, getting the helmet. Did you wish they showed the decapitation or no, you was good with them cutting away?
I think it would have been nice to show it. I mean, the movie's bloody and violent already. Why not? They
Yeah,
showed Sabretooth get decapitated too.
yeah, I was like, "Why didn't Wolverine just do this the whole time?" In the X-Men movie,
Right.
like, "Hey, you could've just done this the whole time there."
It is funny. It is kind of a carry through of a thread because he does say in it's it's the worst one of them, but in X-Men Origins of Wolverine, Sabretooth says, "Do you even know how to kill me?" And he's like, "I'm going to start by cutting your head off." And in a way, it was kind of a payoff for that movie in a weird small way.
Yeah. So she ends up getting the helmet because that's the only thing that can block her powers. Cassandra Nova, I did like what they did as far as showing her powers, very like that show Legion, like that very horror
Mhm.
kind of aspect where she would put her fingers inside the head and they would
Still the
come.
best live action X-Men property.
Yeah, Legion
Throw
is
that out
pretty
there.
amazing there. If nobody's ever seen it, Dan Stevens really knocks it out of the park there as that character. Talk a little bit. How'd you like Cassandra Nova in here? Is she? You think she's like villain A, and then Mister Paradox is like villain B, or do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think. I mean, at least at the very least in terms of presentation, I think so. It's the thing where like I think the script underwrites her as a villain and as a character, but I think Emma Corrin's performance is so charismatic and well thought out and memorable that it kind of shines through the script a bit. Like where like I think the actual writing is like okay for her character. It's kind of flat, but I think she brings such a strong personality to it that she kind of rises above the material a little bit. So I think she could have been a better villain, but I think that actress really Emma Corrin, I think, did such a good job. I wish I would have loved to have seen what she would have done if they gave her more to do, because I think she was so good. Um, but yeah, I do. I think the story itself, the actual plot, it does underwrite her. It doesn't actually give her that much.
Yeah. And she's good. I think Cassandra Nova is good. She kind of reminded me the way Emma Corrin was playing it as like Hela from Thor Ragnarok. Like a lot of that
She's a
reveling
little
and
bit of
being evil. So I think even though the character was underwritten, I think she was having a lot. The performance really shines if the character is kind of
yeah.
underwritten. So her whole thing. So she's the twin of Charles Xavier, and then this Cassandra Nova. She actually, they said I think she ended up killing her brother in the womb, right? Her in her universe or no?
No, it's just that she fought him in the womb. So
Oh, okay.
that yeah, so she fought him in the womb and then she got banished out into the void after that. Which, just to, bring in the comic knowledge just a little bit, it's even a little bit weirder than that. She's not just his twin, but she is what's called a mamumdrai, which is this like parasitic life form that is like a psychic twin born of the astral plane of existence. So she's like a twin from another reality that is like made of psychic energy. So it's even a little weirder in the comics, the way kind of her existence.
Yeah. So her thing is like she has trauma, I guess, from not knowing her brother, and then she wants to seek out her brother. She says there has been Charles Xavier that have gone to the void, but none of them have been her. I mean, none have been her version of her brother. So my question is, so she's working with the TVA. She's like, hey, we have a deal. Your people come down here, and then I have my things because she in the void. She's basically like a god in the void, which she does
Right.
of how she controls things. So they have like an agreement of like,
You stay there and we'll keep sending things for you to.
yeah, play with and things like that. And so if she knows what the TVA does, why wouldn't she just utilize the TVA to jump to all the different universes to find who her brother is. So I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean that comes with her. I think that comes from her being underrated or underwritten, as far as motivation goes. Because at a certain part of the movie, we're told that she's pretty much just perfectly happy to just kind of be there. And then later she talks about her brother, and but then it's like she already kind of has a way out that she's had this whole time. But earlier in the movie they say she doesn't use it because she likes being here. But then later she's like, no, I do want to get out and do this thing. So again, it's conflicting character motivations that don't totally line up across the movie, which again, it's where I think if not for Emma Corrin's performance, I think it would be a pretty weak villain. Just because I think what the script does is not is it's not consistent.
Yeah. And so her ultimate plan is that because the TVA, so they backstabbed her, Matthew McFadden, he's like, he wanted Pyro to kill her because she's
Yeah.
proven to be too much trouble. And then, so since he did that, she was like, okay, since you kind of reneged on our deal, I'm going to go to the world and then I'm going to, basically erase all the universes using the time ripper or whatever, and then only make it just the void. And I'm going to rule in the void there. That's kind of her big plan.
Yeah. Well, and then she also comes up with that like so at the last minute too, because she doesn't know that that machine's there, right? She goes there first, hears someone say to mention it, and then she's like, "Oh, well, I have a new motivation now in the final 10 minutes of the movie." So she kind of just I don't know. It's I mean it works fine enough for again the vehicle of it being a comedy. But I mean, you stop and start thinking about this, it doesn't really hold up under logic very much.
Yeah. So that was kind of like, and just like, even their whole plan of like, so they were gonna go there, put the helmet on her to make her send them back.
Right.
Um, because the Blade and then all of them told them that she's the only one that can send them back.
Yeah, she has something that would allow them to some secret way out, which turned out to be a Doctor Strange
Swing.
magic ring thing.
Yeah. So she has that. Um, Yeah, so okay. And then the whole thing Wolverine uses the power of love to convince her to be good and then allow her to send them back to jump through the
I I was like in the moment, I was like, really? This seems really she's listening to what why does she's been so evil this whole time? Like she really is gonna like work with him here just because he said something somewhat inspirational. But then she follows them through, and then I think that worked okay because it came across as to me as she was kind of lying there when she said she'd just let them go, and then she follows them through right after. So I think she was just kind of playing coy and kind of trying to use them to get something else. But
But isn't the only reason she follows them through is because Pyro had shot her and then she
yeah,
read the mind of Pyro and then read what they were gonna do. So isn't that the reason she
that's true. Yeah, yeah. I guess I mean it does. Yeah, it's very inconsistent. Yeah.
and then they had to rush to jump through the portal because the Alioth, the big purple dragon monster, smoke monster,
Mm.
weed monster, was coming there. Supposedly the monster kills basically eats all the people that she doesn't protect, I guess, Cassandra Nova.
Well,
Um,
there was a shot at the end, at the very end, when Deadpool's going in to get the footage of Human Torch insulting her. Um, and you see on one of the screens down in one of the corners, like you do see Gambit, like what looks like a shot on like one of the cameras of him like coming home. So it looks like some of those characters survived.
yeah, because at the end, Daphne Keene shows back up, which I thought
Right, she's at the birthday party.
she's at the dinner or birthday party. So I don't know why they wouldn't be dead if the monster's supposed to eat up
Yeah, I
their
don't know how they possibly survived that.
so yeah, so okay, so I don't know. I guess there is a Blade. I guess they all went back to their universe. I guess I don't know exactly how, but okay. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
everybody got a
I get the idea that Deadpool asks the TVA to help his couple of friends. That part, I think I can buy that. That makes enough sense. How they survived Goliath going through like right into them, that I don't understand.
yeah. So I don't know how they survive that, but hey, happy ending. Everybody gets a happy ending. Your favorite characters there.
I'm
Um,
more okay with it because it's a comedy, and I am willing to give it a little bit of a looser, sense of rules than like other Marvel movies, but I mean, again, if you start scrutinizing it, it does kind of fall apart.
Yeah. Any issues you can think of, like, is plot holes, any things that just doesn't make sense?
I mean, I think you brought up all the ones I would have mentioned. Probably number one being how is Laura in the void, or how is that the same version of that would have been from that whole thing? That's probably my number one plot hole that I just like. I don't know how to wrap my head around that.
Mm, yeah. And of course, Deadpool and Wolverine at the end, they save the universe. They save all the universes. Wolverine redeems himself there, becomes the hero there as always. Yeah, and it's kind of left open, like what's going to happen with the future of these characters. There's no stinger at the end. There's no like, hey, we're going to be back in Avengers: Secret Wars or whatever. Even though that's the rumor that they're going to be in that.
I'm sure they will.
That's like
Again, I think that they're going to have Tobey Maguire and Hugh Jackman on screen together. I don't foresee a world in which unless one of them, you know, God forbid, passes away before that movie gets made.
yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that that's something that they're going to do.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how much more money they got left because they're already paying Robert Downey Jr. over 80 million. They're paying the Russo brothers over 80 million. They can't be giving everybody 80 million. Damn. I mean,
I'm worried about what the CGI in that movie is going to look like.
yeah. I mean, that's gonna be one of the most
Leftover.
expensive movies ever made. I mean, damn, they're giving everybody all that money. So yeah. So that's what also I like. There's like, it's kind of like, okay, what's gonna happen with these characters? Who knows? It's like, who knows there. Best moments for you in the movie.
Best moments. I mean, I really liked the searching through the different Wolverine montage. I thought that was really fun. The tiny little comic accurate height. Again, even though we said it's maybe not exactly comic accurate, but the tiny little Wolverine, the Henry Cavill Wolverine was a surprise. I one of them was like in an alleyway, which had this very 80s kind of look to it.
That
That's
was, I think, Age of Apocalypse.
Age of Apocalypse. Yep. The only thing they didn't show was on that stump hand, he does have like red laser claws. That would have been cool to see, but um, the the crucified Wolverine and Deadpool's like, hey, you look busy. I'll just leave you to this. That's like a very iconic comic book cover. I want to say is that from the E is for Extinction or the Extinction storyline maybe. Um, I thought I really liked the Deadpool variants coming in. I thought that was a lot of fun. To me, that's how I think like the Spider-Man did it okay, and I think the Doctor Strange movie did it kind of poorly. But this is what I want to see when I'm like, you want to bring in the multiverse and say you want to use the words multiverse of madness. That is what I expect to see, and I thought that was fun. Yeah, none of them can get hurt or can die really, but again, it's again being the vehicle for comedy, I think made it work for me. I thought that was a fun moment, and him killing Nice Spool just to get his dog and his guns. I thought that was a really good. All the little appearances of Nice Spool, or I guess it was just the two, but I thought that was a good setup and payoff. And
Oh yeah.
also like that also to me spoke to the comic book version of Deadpool just a little bit more because Deadpool's, I think in these movies has always been decidedly more heroic than he has typically been in the comics, and he's been heroic in the comics. Not to say he's not, but I think starting as a villain and just being a little more out of control in the comics leads him to do some more violent things against totally innocent people sometimes. And I thought him killing Nice Fool that way was a really great kind of that to me was almost the most comic book Deadpool thing I've seen him do in all three movies.
Yeah, and this was a funny. I love Nice Pool. Nice Pool when he came on was provided some of the funniest kind of stuff here in this movie. And this is the death scene here.
Why are we stopping? Just catching my breath. What are your legs on vacation? You're dead weight. It's because I'm paralyzed. We all have problems. Listen to me.
Look at me, Nice Fool.
You're gonna live. Say it.
I'm gonna live.
Say it with me. You're gonna live. I'm gonna live. Say it louder. I'm gonna live.
Yeah, that's pretty good. All the stuff, yeah, pretty good. I actually love that there. And I love the line delivery there when you actually have from Wolverine here. I mean, they got a good back and forth. I think when it matters,
Their dynamic is the best part.
yeah. This line delivery I thought was really amazing here. I was laughing out loud at this scene right
He died from murder, you dumb fuck.
here. uh, but I mean, so where it counts, where it is Deadpool and Wolverine, it does really work. I mean, the real life friendship of Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, I think, does carry over into the movie, which you kind of really want to see there.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean that's the best part of the whole thing. I mean, there how much, especially for the majority of it, how much Wolverine cannot stand Deadpool, and that he just will not shut up. I mean, when Wolverine yells at him in the car, I thought like that might be some of the angriest we've seen Hugh Jackman play Wolverine across the entire like history of the franchise.
Mm. And some people talking about, yeah, I mean, some people can say that. I mean, emotion wise, I mean, Hugh Jackman is delivering here. I mean, he's not phoning it in. I think he is kind of giving some little bit of acting there with it. Um, just real quick, like some more fleshing out stuff. So the kind of arc with Deadpool of just him wanting to be a hero and then not feeling like he's a hero enough for Vanessa, I guess. I didn't really get that because he was the hero in the second and first movie, so I didn't really get what the big thing was there.
See, I think that did work for me, and then what I think it was, at least like the way I interpreted it, was that it wasn't that he had never been the hero, it was that he'd always been the hero for himself or to get something for himself, and being a hero, being a hero for other people, like purely for other people, I think that was the point, was the arc of like, well, if I'm being a hero for me it's unsatisfying, if I'm being a hero for other people there's more of a sense of accomplishment in it, like an internal accomplishment that he gets from it. I think that was the idea.
Yeah, but didn't he already do that? Because he helped the little boy in Deadpool 2.
Yes, but it was kind of all about his grief of his girlfriend and being like, I just need to
Mm,
make myself feel better, kind of a thing.
okay.
Whereas, I mean, that's part of why I think that movie kind of falls down and is a bit weaker. Is that kid? I wish it had just been Deadpool and Cable. That is an interesting thing, though. I think Deadpool and Wolverine in this movie, their dynamic is the comic book dynamic that Deadpool and Cable have, that they kind of didn't quite get right in that last one,
Yeah.
which is interesting because like Deadpool has dynamic with Wolverine in the comics too, but I would say that this kind of like we're working together on a, I mean, I guess it's just one movie, but at least in the comics, it's like, hey, we're going to work together on a regular basis and team up and have this like camaraderie where the other person can't stand Deadpool but begrudgingly work with him. That's kind of Cable and Deadpool's thing. But I mean, it worked great here for this version of it. But it's just interesting that they did a whole Cable movie and they didn't quite get that, and yet this movie managed to kind of nail it, but with a different character.
Yeah. Well, he didn't test well in focus groups, Cable. He came back. He didn't test well there. I'm glad. I mean, they had a lot of characters in Deadpool 2. That was kind of one of the problems of that movie. That was one of the things that the superhero movies do. They're so busy spending so much time setting up other things. Like I think that's what Deadpool do, like trying to set up Task Force X and trying to set up all these introducing Domino. And I like Domino. I like Zazie Beetz' Domino. But you had
I
that.
think if you just cut that kid out, it would have worked.
Just cut the kid out.
Well,
uh,
cut the kid out so that Deadpool is actually traveling with Cable, and the movie's about their dynamic, and X Force is a background element. I think the rest of it would have fallen into place if they had just cut that kid part out.
okay. Yeah. So yeah. So it's just kind of a lot kind of going on there at Deadpool 2, which I don't think there's too much going on here in Deadpool 3. Do you think that Deadpool 3 is like, do you think they do a good job of you haven't have seen all the other stuff? Like you don't have to watch the Disney Plus shows. I know it references Loki heavy, but do you think they get a good enough job like summarizing a lot of the key points there for people and everything?
I think so. I think they do. I mean, I think you'd probably want to have seen. I mean, I guess where I question it is how much is some of the stuff going to land if you haven't watched much of the like Fox stuff. I think you at least need to have some history with Hugh Jackman and I mean Logan at least, right? With the way the opening sequence plays out, but I don't think you need to necessarily have watched all of Loki to understand what's going on here. I think they explain what the TVA is and what the Void is fairly well. I don't think any of that's crucial. But I do feel like, I mean, I feel like you at least need to have seen the two Deadpool movies and at least a good, decent chunk of the X-Men films.
Yeah. Because they do, like, it is a tribute to those Fox superhero movies, like I said, Electra,
Yeah.
Fantastic Four comes in there. I mean, I don't know who's like a big it's like Electra fan. I don't know, maybe somebody else like Electra's back.
I mean, I think that's the kind of cameo that would not work in any other movie other than Deadpool. But again, I think it comes back to Deadpool being this weird specific tone where I think you could kind of get characters from movies that were considered bad, and Deadpool can make it fun, and he's probably the only one that can make that fun.
Yeah, because it's not just them, like, they actually pay respect to it. It's not just like, "Oh, hey, it's making fun because your movie wasn't
Right.
good." It's like, "Hey, still, like, you get to have your superhero moment, and pay
Yeah.
respect to you." And then at the end of the movie, they show the credits, and they show, like, a little montage of all the behind the scenes of the movies.
I
Uh
thought that was a lot of fun. I thought that was really sweet, actually. I, I remember I was probably 5 when that first X-Men movie came out. I remember seeing it in the theater even then. Um, so I mean, I've watched the only one that they showed was the 2015 Fantastic Four because it was the only thing they showed footage of I haven't actually watched. But I've seen all those movies that they're talking about, and
yeah.
for good or bad, it was an era. It got the I mean Blade started it, but it got the kind of superhero train running to the point where something like the MCU even was able to come and exist in the wake of all that stuff, like the X-Men franchise and Spider-Man being successful. So I don't know. I thought that was a really nice tribute.
Yeah, showed all the movies, showed Fantastic Four, showed the X-Men movies, showed Elektra, showed Blade, there, showed all the movies.
And even very time appropriate music attached to it too.
Yeah, that's something. It's just like, man, that's over 20 years that they've been out and been doing this. So it's kind of crazy to think about. It's yeah, most of people's lives there. These movies have been out there. Yeah. So what you said rating would be high tune in?
Yeah, I'd give it like a high tune. Again, there's things in there that don't make sense, right? Like totally, I'm with you on all those points. But I think it's just having a different set of expectations for Deadpool, where if the comedy works, some of that other stuff, I can kind of just let it melt into the background. It's there. Don't get me wrong, it's there. But for me, I was laughing so much that a lot of that stuff kind of it didn't bother me until I was maybe thinking about it afterwards. But I feel like I could sit down and watch it again and just appreciate the jokes.
Mm, yeah. So what do you think is next? You think you definitely think Hugh Jackman's come back as Wolverine? You think Ryan Reynolds has come back as Deadpool? You think?
I think so. I think at least for Secret Wars, for
Mm,
sure. At least for that, the Doomsday Secret Wars two-parter. We have to see why Thor was crying. We got to pay that off.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I probably bet money that Hugh Jackman's coming back. Whether you think any of the other ones coming back, you think Channing Tatum's coming back, you think Jennifer Garner, Wesley Snipes, you think?
I'm gonna say no on Jennifer Garner. I think that was a one-off. Especially because they kept saying like, and we'll help you get there, and then we'll get to have our ending. It felt like it was also saying goodbye to those characters too.
Mm,
Um, Channing Tatum Gambit, maybe just because it's the first time he got to do it, so it's not like he was some returning character that we were like, oh, nice to see you again. And for the last time, it was like it was an introduction almost. Um, Wesley Snipes is an interesting one because people have said he's too old to like really come back and play this character a lot, but like, I mean, he showed up, he did it, he was in some action scenes. And with all the production trouble that this other Blade movie that they're trying to do is having, I I mean, part of me wishes they would just kind of bring him back. I don't know how much of it he'd really be up for because I mean he's getting up there, but I
62.
think he looked 62. I mean, he looked really good in the movie as the character. Like he did not look like he didn't look 60 to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
He really didn't.
Ryan Reynolds did say he would want us like a Logan style Wesley Snipes Blade movie with Wesley Snipes coming back there. Um,
I would love to see that. That'd be very cool.
yeah, and then I don't know Blade. I mean, in the movie's talking about like I want my ending. It's like, well, dude, you actually had 3 movies. I mean, like you
That's
kind of
true. That's
you
true.
did have your time. I mean, 2 of them were good that people like. So I
Right.
mean, like that was just the era that nobody was getting a good third good superhero movie. That just was the time.
Oh yeah, it was a curse for a long time.
Yeah, so that was the thing. But Wesley Snipes. Not to say I don't like Wesley Snipes' Blade. I mean, yeah, I mean, for black people, I mean, he's got a lock on that character. He's like, I guess Patrick Stewart with Charles Xavier. It's like he's got a lock on that character, I guess. But I don't know.
Right.
James McAvoy
Well,
came
I
in.
do think James McAvoy is pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, maybe there will only ever be one Blade. I don't know.
Oh, so you do have that. So yeah. I gave it a tune in. Sage gave it a high tune in there for Deadpool and Wolverine. That was our spoiler talk.